I can see your screen.
Okay, great. My taste gonna be my checklist. Make sure I get everything squared away. Okay. All right. So I think we got up to I think last thing we were on was amicio, excuse me, acquisitio, rather acquisitio, which means, as we would think, acquisition, right? To gain, to acquire. And acquisitio, as I've always said, looks like, well, to me at least, it looks like a bag with a coin falling into it. Okay. So again, when you see that picture, just have it registered in your mind. This means to gain something, to get something. That's it before in our last session, that it to decide its favorability, it depends upon the question being asked, right? So for example, if you're asking, will this person have cancer? Okay, something to that effect. Well, again, acquisition is about acquiring something, gaining something. So in that regard, it would be an unfavorable answer, okay? Because acquisition means to gain. So if it's favorable to your question, it means yes to your question, but that would end up being a bad thing for the client, right? It's good for the question, but bad for the client. If you were to ask a question such as, will I get this raise? Okay, and you get, or this bonus, and you get acquisitio, then that would be, of course, good for the question and, of course, good for the client, right? That means, yes, you're going to get the raise, and that's obviously going to be a very favorable thing for the client. Or to use the proper terms for the querent, right? We're going to go into that in a second about the querent and the quisited and what those two terms mean. So just kind of put a finger there. So this is acquisitio, all right? The next figure we're looking at here is the figure via, or some people say via, right? And when people say via, it means it's like for what? By way of, right? You said I got home via the interstate. It means I got home by way of the interstate. The word via literally means the way or the path or the road. Okay. Some even interpret it as the journey. And it looks like, you know, odd, 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 odd. It's like, you know, a row, or should I say a column of single dots, right? So it indicates a single path. Now, the thing about via is that it is a very changeable energy, okay? It does indicate a path or a journey that has its fair share of twists and turns, okay? So it is very changeable. So if there's a situation that has not moved for quite some time and the person wants to know, will the situation change for me? Okay. Well, then via in that case would be a very favorable figure to have. This is yes, there is change coming. Okay. There's a bend in the road somewhere, right? All that has been is not always going to be. You can even think of it as I heard some people say, think of it as a river or as a current flowing. Okay. So all of those notions are associated with via. Again, via is astrologically ruled by the moon, is the zodiac sign Cancer. Okay, so it can also, well, let me not get ahead of myself there. We'll stop it there. It's ruled by the moon in the zodiac sign of Cancer. Okay, so that is via, the way. The next we have is Fortuna Minor. As you notice, it's the upside down version of Fortuna Major. All right, and Fortuna Minor, of course, in Latin, it means the lesser fortune or the minor fortune. We have Fortuna Major, the greater fortune, Fortuna Minor, the lesser fortune. So whereas, let's say, for example, Fortuna Major will be a lot more sustainable, okay? It can indicate, let's say, a raise, for example, right? Whereas Fortuna Minor may indicate a bonus, right? You still got more money, but it's not sustainable in and of itself. Okay. It also does indicate money is going to come relatively quickly and leave relatively quickly, or resources, all right, to make the best of it. It's also been seen as where Fortuna Major is access to external resources, right? Somebody helping you out, like a grant or something of that nature. And then Fortuna Minor, speaking of more internal resources, like your skill set, your talents, your know-how, soft skill, etc. Okay, think of it as something underground, like a hidden treasure. I heard I read one author put it like that. That these two, the first two dots or diamonds in this case, are above ground, and the latter four diamonds are underground. It's almost the idea of a sunken treasure or a buried treasure. It's the internal resources that are going to be able to win the day for you. Okay, but again, it is a favorable figure. Now, in the rank of favorability, let's see here. It is, as I said, a favorable figure, but not as favorable as, let's say, Fortuna Major. Obviously, one is major and one is minor. All right. We good so far?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we're good. Absolutely.
All right. So the next figure we have here is Caput Draconis. Caput Draconis. Caput, as in decapitate, right? Caput means head. Draconis means dragon. It means the head of the dragon. All right. And Caput Draconis represents heading in. That's a good idea. Heading into, thank you, Spirit, heading into a new opportunity, heading into a new adventure, right? New beginnings, doors being opened, something new, something fresh, something crisp. Okay, it represents access. Okay, a new journey. It could be a new job, a new marriage. All right, or some other new venture. All right, and it is, as I said, the kaput draconis means the dragon's head. Its sequence, binary sequence, is even, odd, 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 and I think of it as these 2 points here being the pillars of a doorpost, or 2 pillars or a doorpost, okay? And these being the footsteps leading into it, leading into a new arena, into a new room, into a new space, okay? That is the dragon's head. Very, 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 very favorable. Okay, so we're asking about, is this new business venture going to be favorable? Should I open a new restaurant? Even if it's something new or change, things of that nature, and something else. Those questions, when you see kaput draconis show up, is very favorable. Okay, it leans towards a emphatic yes. And then lastly, we have here again the upside down version of caput draconis, which is cauda draconis, C-A-U-D-A, cauda draconis, or if you're British, you say cauda, cauda draconis, which means the tail of the dragon, or the dragon's tail. All right. So if caput draconis means beginning, what do you think cauda draconis means?
Means the end.
It means the end, the ending, leaving something behind. Okay, it can also even speak of a type of letting go. All right, but that would more so fall towards, again, amicia, right? But it's the leaving of something behind. All right. So, and again, you'll notice we talked about this a little bit yesterday about advanced interpretative techniques being based strongly in how you phrase the question, right? The strength of your answer is going to lie in the strength of your question and what you asked and how you asked it. Okay, so if, for example, you asked something to the effect of, should I move to Chicago, or something to that effect, all right, and you got a unfavorable um, judge or unfavorable answer, well, then you might want to consider the question, should I leave my current city? Right? Because for something to be moved into, for there to be a new beginning, something else has to be left behind. Right? So you see how these figures play off of themselves, right? How all, let's say all answers are really two answers. There's always with three sides to a story, his side, her side, and the truth. In other words, there's always a mirroring of the question of the answer. And that's one of the beautiful things about geomancy, is that because you have a mirror that can also be a telescope or a microscope, you can get great detail into the situation at hand by asking the right questions. Oftentimes back in the day when they would be casting these charts, you would see the geomancer kind of mumbling to himself. But the idea was he was actually speaking to the chart. He was having a conversation with the spirits behind the chart to get certain answers. So we have Caput Draconis, the head of the dragon, and Cauda Draconis, the tail of the dragon. Okay. Now, if you're familiar with astrology, these relate to the north node of the moon and the south node. Okay. Now that we have taken care of the initial part of the geomantic figures, let's get to some actual castings here. Because the next part I want to look into, now we've pretty much established the figures, and most of you know the chart. Let's go into the court. All right. No, you're not on trial. We want to get some information and some understanding on the structure of the court. Okay. So let's go into that. Any questions on what we've covered so far before I move into this next portion?